If you always struggle to draft a tight end and have a last minute draft coming up, look no further because I have 2025 rankings for the top 25 tight ends right here on RotoWire, and we'll jump right into it. There are no strangers from the S tier. Here it is Brock Bowers and Trey McBride. And how I built all this out, if you've watched some of the previous videos, these are all done by projections. And yes, I do make adjustments where it depends of like quarterback health or if there's a low floor because always quarterback play and injury. But projections let us know just what is exactly possible within that offense. And Brock Bowers and Trey McBride could be a top 12 wide receiver with the tight end label that you can inject right into your lineup early, especially if you're going to be one of the people out there who still do 8-man and 10-man leagues. I think it's even more important to reach for a tight end because having that upside with a smaller field is invaluable. I'm even drafting Brock Bowers in best ball in 12-man leagues for the same reason, just having that positional upside. Now, I will say Trey McBride I like as well. My only issue with waiting on Trey McBride is that if I do want this top tier of tight ends, is that sometimes waiting on him, he won't be there because once Brock Bowers goes, you can be sure that McBride is going to go shortly after if another manager has the same idea as you do. And to be honest, I think that both of these guys could finish as the tight end one, and I like McBride just as much as Bowers. I'm especially not worried about Brock Bowers and Michael Mayer's splits because Michael Mayer is going to be blocking a lot, and I think Bowers is going to be the primary target earner. And with everything going on with Jacoby Myers, it just seems like that's more targets to go around. Next, we'll move to the A tier, and this is a solo tier of just George Kittle. Right now, that entire 49ers pass catching group is banged up. It's just Ricky Pearsall and George Kittle right now. Kittle was already a stud last season when they had an even more crowded field. So at this point, this is honestly a player that could be in the next tier. But like I mentioned, there is that floor. I'm still really concerned about the 49ers offense, particularly with the offensive line. And if it's just George Kittle out there, sometimes he needs to stay in and block, especially to help if that offensive line does take an even bigger step back. So that's my only issue. I'm drafting George Kittle often. Before we move down to the rest of the tiers, if you like videos like this, and if you want help throughout your fantasy season, hit the like and subscribe button. I'll have waivers for you. We'll have plenty of all of our RotoWire personalities that are going to guide you throughout the rest of your season. And if you want to use our trade analyzer and all those tools to help with that in-season management, go over to RotoWire.com, use the code YouTube15 at checkout, and that gives you 15% off all of our RotoWire tools and subscriptions. And we'll get right back into it with our B tier: TJ Hockenson, Travis Kelce, Colston, Loveland, and Mark Andrews. I have not drafted enough TJ Hockenson because even though they traded Adam Thielen, Jordan Addison's going to miss time. It seems that Jalen Naylor is dealing with some injury struggles. Ty Felton hasn't taken the next leap forward to step right in as a wide receiver too. That means that TJ Hockenson, who has already been a target earner throughout his entire career, who came back last season and even with the slow start, steadily ended up getting that high volume of targets that we like for tight ends, can be the 2 option in this offense. Moreover, JJ McCarthy is now the starter, and he built a career of throwing the Colston at Loveland. So he likes throwing to the middle of the field. He likes throwing to his tight ends. TJ Hawkinson's someone where after I get past George Kittle, he's probably one of the last lines of defense where I feel super comfortable taking a tight end and feel like I have a surefire bet at top 5. Travis Kelce, I'm struggling with here because, like I said, I used projections for this. I haven't been drafting Kelce. I've really been concerned about where his head's at. And I'm not saying that just because he's marrying Taylor Swift that it all goes to hell, but it does seem to have affected him, and it does seem to be a distraction, but he's still drawing over 110 targets. So yeah, we're not going to be drafting him in the 2nd, 3rd round like we are with Brock Bowers and Trey McBride, but I still think he's a useful tight end. We're just seeing him come back to earth to normal elite tight end numbers and not wide receiver numbers. Rashee Rice being suspended, I think, is huge for Kelce and Jalen Royals, but mainly Kelce. I don't think that Xavier Worthy is going to step in right away back into that role because they have Jalen Royals, and I still think that he's going to be used more on deeper routes and a little bit of the gimmicky stuff. I'm not saying that he can't run routes. This is just how the Andy Reid offense works, and I don't think that he's Tyreek Hill level of elite. I'm not saying he's not good. I'm just saying he's not Tyreek Hill, who we saw put up back-to-back 2,000-yard seasons. Even mentioning them in the same name should be a compliment. which brings me back to Travis Kelce, who, again, with a healthy amount of targets, I don't see how we're not taking him with other people in crowded offenses like Sam LaPorta or Tucker Kraft, who I also really like. The Isaiah Likely foot injury and realizing that Mark Andrews had a car wreck at the beginning of the season and still put up 10 touchdowns makes me believe that we could see some positive regression and return to form. I'm in drafting him earlier than most people, and I think that we've severely underrated him. Colston, Loveland, again, I'm taking Mark Andrews and Colston, Loveland. I would say swapping them every other draft, depending on what I'm doing, depending on what my stack is, if I'm doing best ball. But I worry about the receivers like DJ Moore, Roma, Dunze cannibalizing off each other, because I think that we're going to see a lot of 12 personnel from the Chicago Bears, and we're actually going to see more Cole Kmet than some can expect. Now, does that mean that Colston Loveland shouldn't be drafted? It's rare that someone drafts a tight end in top 8 and they don't plan on using them early and often. Even with Kyle Pitts, the disappointment that he is, we saw an incredible rookie season right away. And Colston Loveland is a much more well-rounded player that can be used every snap. Now we'll move down to the C tier: Sam LaPorta, Tucker Kraft, Evan Engram, Tyler Warren, David Njoku. This is normally where I draft more often than not if there's players available, because Sam LaPorta is in this tier. Most people are drafting him a tier ahead, if not ahead of TJ Hockenson sometimes. I just don't think that the targets are going to be there. Jameson Williams is still there. Amon-Ra St. Brown is still there. And then Isaac Tesla is going to come in and steal some targets. That's not even including the backfield of Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, whom both earn targets in this offense. To have an elite tight end upside, we need you to be consistently a top 2 target, at the bare minimum top 3. And I just don't see how it's going to be that way in this offense, especially now that Ben Johnson's not the offensive coordinator. Even in Dynasty, I'm moving off LaPorta to tier down, and not because I think he's just going to be a bust, but I just don't think we're going to see that same season we saw when he was a rookie. I think he could put up the same numbers as Tucker Kraft, who's a lot cheaper. Jaden Reed is dealing with the foot injury. We don't even know how long that's going to be, and I'm starting to get incredibly concerned. Romeo Doubs is still going to be the outside guy, and there's Matthew Golden. That leaves a lot of targets across the middle of the field. I just don't think Dontavian Wicks is it. He still struggles with drops. Tucker Kraft and Luke Musgrave, from that matter, have been tearing it up, but they seem to have made a concerted effort, and with the training camp hype, have continually hyped up Tucker Kraft. So I love the stock, especially at cost. Evan Engram and Tyler Warren, I like both of these. Tyler Warren's going a little bit cheaper than Evan Engram, even though that they're tiered together with my projections. So I tend to take Tyler Warren more often. I know earlier in the season I was fading him because I was unsure of what that quarterback situation is going to be, but he seems to be a target hog. And if Daniel Jones is going to be out there, I think that especially with Daniel Jones' skill set, he's not going to be chucking it deep to Alec Pierce. And I think it could be the Tyler Warren show. David Njoku's another one who was a tight end 5 last season in points per game. He just missed games. And even with Harold Fannin Jr. coming in, I think the tight ends are going to be the stars of this pass catchers, and the receivers are going to be the ones that disappoint you out of the Browns offense. Keep in mind that the Browns are just disappointing for several reasons beyond that. Now with the D tier: Mason Taylor, Kyle Pitts, Harold Fannin Jr., Jake Ferguson, and Britton Strange. The big surprise here is Mason Taylor. There's just no pass catchers at the Jets to really project consistent targets for. And then when you think about Justin Fields' skill set and what he did for someone like Cole Kmet, I really see Mason Taylor being a useful piece of this offense going forward. Kyle Pitts, same thing. Still disappointing, still shouldn't have been drafting him as a top 5 tight end, and we're not here. But I still think that he could be a top 3 target for the Falcons, if not top 4. And in this tier, that's all we can hope for. Jake Ferguson, I would feel a lot better about if George Pickens wasn't there. I still think he's going to be useful. I'd still draft him, but I just think that he has a lower ceiling than a lot of these people. Britton Strange is probably one of the cheapest ones on this list, besides the one I'm intentionally skipping till the end of this tier. And that's because the Jags offense, if it emulates anything that we've seen from the Buccaneers, I could see Britton Strange having a Cade Otton type season, which is useful in fantasy. Harold Fannin Fannin Jr. is the big surprise here other than Mason Taylor, and it's because in the preseason and from what the Browns have been saying, they're going to be running a lot of 12 personnel, and Harold Fannin Jr. effectively could be the slot in this offense with Cedric Tillman and Jerry Jeudy playing on the outside. I'm all in on Harold Fannin, and if anything, I faded David Njoku a lot further down than where I had been drafting him because of Harold Fannin. We'll finish off with the E tier: Hunter Henry, Dallas Goedert, Cade Otton, Zach Ertz, Chigakonkwo, Joni Smith, Dalton Kincaid, Pat Freiermuth. My favorite here is Hunter Henry because he quietly had a decent season as one of the better target earners in a target-poor offense of the Patriots. Dallas Goedert is effectively just a handcuff for if Devontae Smith or A.J. Brown is out. Basically, this entire tier, you feel good if they're tight end 2s, feel even better if they're tight end 3s, depending on how deep you want to draft. Zach Ertz is someone I think is underrated because of, again, there's just not a lot of consistent pass catchers for Washington, and they seem to really love him, and he built a rapport there with Jaden Daniels. Chigakonkwo, that's someone else that I kind of like in this tier if I am going to go tight end early and I want to pair it with someone with maybe high upside just in case to give myself a little bit of security. Chigakonkwo could make the next step because Cam Ward is there. I have no interest in Dalton Kincaid and Pat Freiermuth. They're just here by default. I just don't think that Dalton Kincaid's going to be a thing. He can't separate, can't stay healthy. Being healthy was an issue even in college, and that's why he was such an old prospect coming out. Pat Freiermuth, nerfed because of Joni Smith. Really don't know what the Steelers are doing. They don't have a lot of pass catchers, so again, they're up here by default, but they're guys that you're hoping get a touchdown, and I don't think they're going to consistently going to have 5 or 6 catch games. But that'll do it, folks. That's your tight end rankings. I have rankings for quarterbacks, running backs, and wide receivers on the channel, so if you want to go back and look at those, if you have those drafts, make sure to like the subscribe button. And again, if you want access to tools and all of our stuff behind the paywall, use YouTube 15. I'm Jagger May. Love you guys and see you on the next one.